Welcome back. We've got two more season previews to do for the 2025 year with Kubota High-Limit Racing. And today we are talking about last year's third place finisher in the point standings, and that is Rico Abreu. Abreu, the 32-year-old driver out of St. Helena, California. He drives the Schnee Lawson chassis for Rico Abreu, Kurbagajanian Racing. And he's got a pretty damn good team behind him as well, including Hall of Fame crew chief Ricky Warner. Obviously known for everything he did with Donnie Schatz for several years. The car chief is going to be Zach Middlebrooks, same guy as last year, and also the tire specialist is Brady Forbrook, the son of Guy Forbrook, obviously well known as well for his endeavors as a crew chief in the sprint car world over the last 20-25 years. Now, looking at the 2025 schedule for Rico, I believe off the top of my head, he has the least amount of new tracks that he is going to this year. And so that's interesting. I mean, there's only 6 tracks on there for Rico. I think everybody else had at least 8, if I'm not mistaken. So Rico, he's been to a lot of racetracks, and that will certainly help him out here. And as you can tell, there is a lot of green in this section as well, meaning that he has won at a lot of tracks on the high-limit schedule this year. But for the tracks that'll be new to him, Arizona Speedway, also Texarkana, Ransomville in New York, the 2 Wisconsin tracks at 141 and Red Cedar, and Florence Speedway in Kentucky. So for Abreu, he's going to have a little advantage on some of these guys going into the first 10 or so races of the year. Only 2 new tracks for him in that first part of the schedule. So Rico is in a good spot there. Now, when it comes to tracks that he has won at before, you could add onto that list Tulare, Eldora, Silver Dollar, Kokomo, Skagit, Lawrenceburg, Tri-City, Grandview, 81, Lernerville, Port Royal, Placerville, Utica Rome, Bridgeport, and Path Valley. Now, a lot of the tracks on that list he won at just last year. Eldora is one of them. Port Royal is one of them. Lernerville, what else we got on there that he's won? Skagit, he won at last year, and Utica Rome. So Rico, very well traveled and is very, very good at a lot of different places. Now, looking at his ranking system, his ranking on the SprintCar.com, SprintCarRatings.com ranking system, he was 4th overall out of all sprint car drivers last year. So a very, very good number there for Rico, and he's going to have a good year in 2025 to try and replicate that ranking from the SprintCarRatings.com website. His best 2024 stat out of the 16 drivers that ran last year with High-Limit Racing, he was 1st overall with the series in heat race wins with 19 heat race wins for Rico. He was also 1st in dash wins as well. He had 4 of those. And as we mentioned earlier, he was 3rd in points behind Tyler Courtney. It came down to the final lap at Texas Motor Speedway's dirt track. Rico was 1 point behind Sunshine there in the final race of the year. So, I mean, so Rico was 3rd, but I mean, pretty much 2nd, right? I mean, he's right there behind. So good year for Rico. And I think he's in for a better year this year. And I'll talk about why here in the improve on section in just a moment. But want to look at his overall stat line with High Limit last year. 51 total starts for Rico. He had 8 wins, 21 top 5s, 36 top 10s, a staggering 238 laps led, a plus 21 in feature plus minus, and then a 5.4 qualifying average, 7.6 finishing average for the driver of the number 24 car. Now, down here at the bottom, we'll take a look at the strengths for Rico. There are a lot of strengths. If I had listed them all, my whiteboard would be off the screen. I mean, there's just so many things that he is good at. But for me, one of the things that really stood out last year was when he gets hot, he is able to stay hot. We saw that on the West Coast swing. He was unbelievable that entire swing there on the West Coast. That just sounded kind of weird, but I mean, he was 2nd a bunch of times. He got the win at Skagit. And then what was cool was he backed that up by going on to win at the Port Royal Speedway across the country. And he was good for pretty much the rest of the year. So that is something for Rico, man. When he gets going, it's tough to make him slow back down. And obviously that's a very good thing that you want. And then as I mentioned a moment ago, the West Coast swing, he was one of, maybe McFadden was the other guy that was maybe a little bit better than Rico overall on that West Coast swing. But that is a part of the schedule that a lot of high-limit racing drivers struggled at. Rico was not one of them. He was dominant during that West Coast swing, and now he gets 2 of them. He is going to tracks that he's been at before. I mean, on that first West Coast swing, obviously he's been unbelievable at Tulare. He's been to Kern and he's been to Paris before as well. So Rico's in a good spot for the beginning of the year. And then he is just good at all the racetracks, right? I mean, look at the different, the variety, the footprint of the wins that he's gotten in his career that are just on the high limit schedule this year. Washington, California, New York, the Midwest, right? I mean, Indiana, Ohio, Western PA. He's done it everywhere, and so that is something that is going to be dangerous this year for the rest of the drivers that are racing against him. In the improve on section, he definitely needs to start the season better than he did last year. Now, he was not horrible by any means at the beginning of last year, but there were a couple of outside the top 10 finishes. I want to say 3 or 4, and he did not win his first race until 17 races into the season and was still able to get 8 total on the year. So he needs to win a lot sooner and put the pressure on guys like guys like Tyler Courtney and Brad Sweet when it comes to that championship because he was so far behind by the time he got that first win and then he finally got going that it was very hard to make up ground on a guy like Brad Sweet that is just going to point you to death throughout the entire 60-race schedule. And then he needs a little bit more consistency. I mentioned during the West Coast Swing that I don't think he was outside the top 10, but maybe one time, and he got a couple of wins. But in the middle portion of the season, after he got that win, after 17 races, there was an 8-race stretch where he was outside the top 13 in 5 of them. So 5 out of 8 races and a little stretch there, he was 13th or worse. And that is just not going to work. I mean, there was a 21st place in there, a 16th place in there. There was a section he had 3 in a row where he was outside the top 10. Definitely going to need to clean that up if he wants to try and win this championship this year with high limit racing. Now, speaking of that, we'll go into the prediction for Rico. I think first to third in points is a given, especially if he's able to start the season better. I would argue he was the best car in the second half of the season overall. When comparing him to Brad Sweet and Tyler Courtney. Courtney's West Coast Swing was just terrible. And then Brad was obviously fast, but Rico was right there with him. And so I think that if Rico can get off to a better start, when we get to Texas down the stretch at the end of the year, he is going to be either in front or very, very close to Brad Sweet and make this championship a little bit closer. I think 8 to 10 wins once again. He got 8 last year. You lose a guy like Corey Day. You lose a guy like McFadden. There's, 12 to 15 wins right there between those two guys. Those wins are going to get spread out among the field. And I think Rico's going to take advantage of that and get maybe 1 or 2 more wins than he did last year. And I think he's going to get 2 big wins, like high-paying wins like he did last year. You got the Skagit Nationals win, and he backed that up a week later with the Tuscarora 50 win. I think that Rico's going to get 2 more big wins in 2025, whether that's the Gold Cup Race of Champions, whether that's the Weikert, whether that's a 50,000 win race at Lernerville or something like that. I think Rico is set for another really, really good season, especially if he can get off to a better start than he did last year. So Rico, a lot of people are counting on him to try and end the dominance of Brad Sweet. Is this the year that he does it? I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. How many wins does he get? Does he win the championship? Let me know everything that you are thinking down in the comment section. Also, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and tomorrow we will finish up these season previews with the defending champion of the series, that being Brad Sweet. And then on Friday, more than likely going to be doing a prediction of who or where I think each driver will finish at in the point standings. And then, just like that, it is race week at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. I heard a very, very interesting announcement earlier, or not announcement, but very interesting piece of information that if it comes true at Las Vegas is going to be a, I don't know what the exact wordage would be of that, and it's not what Dirt Tracker was talking about today. So stay tuned for that. If it comes true, it's really going to turn some heads and going to be very, very interesting for the overall high limit racing season. So let me know your thoughts. We'll talk to you guys again here soon on the Rodman Rundown.